Good morning. Hello. Uh, First of all, I'm going to start by introducing myself. My name is Madhigita Nanda Pramudia Chandrawardhani, and everyone usually call me Gita. So, in today's presentation, I'd like to present about article summary, and the title is "When No One Can Go to School, Does Online Learning Meet Students' Basic Learning Needs?" And this article written by Rod Wang, 2020. So, in today's presentation, I'd like to cover 6 points. Alright, the firstly is about introduction, like what will be discussed in this article, and then secondly is about basic learning needs and online learning, and then thirdly is about methods, which include school students and learning management systems, design, sampling, and procedure. And then fourthly, it's about data collection and data analysis. And then there are questionnaire, basic learning needs satisfaction skills, and online individual interviews. And then fifthly, it's about the result related to this article consists of autonomy, competence, relatedness, arousal, and relationship among components of basic learning needs. Yeah, and then the sixthly is about discussion and implication. Uh, there is effective online learning model, peer relationship in modern education setting, and limitation of this study. And at the end of my presentation, I'd like to present some conclusions point. Alright, so to save time, let's get started with the introduction. Yeah, so many countries, including China, Japan, Korea, the United States, Spain, the United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, and also our countries, Indonesia, closed our schooling for all levels during the critical phase of the COVID-19 pandemic. And then, no country has ever canceled classes for an extended period of time, allowing school to perform all teaching over the internet and students to access learning only through computer. So, for students to learn at home, only learning tools such as Google Classroom, Hangout, Moodle, Teams, PowerSchool, and Zoom have become crucial. And then the effectiveness of online teaching and learning, the direction of future education, learning model for the next decade, and other topics were discussed. And an important question that need to be answered is whether online learning meets the basic learning needs of students, or can online learning without social physical interaction with teachers and peers in a school environment actually meet the basic learning needs of students? Because learning is an emotional and intellectual process that is important for the development of children and adolescents. Yeah, so alright, let me turn now to the second topic, which is about the basic learning needs and online learning. Yeah, so in this study, the operational definition of online learning is education that takes place synchronously or asynchronously over the internet and does not take place in a traditional classroom. And then so it can take the form of online videos, online learning materials, face-to-face meetings, interactive online questions, quizzes, and practice, among other things. And then, according to Blake 2013, it is thought that the internet's accessibility of authentic learning materials and bodies of information has a good impact of learning materials. So, also, according to Blake 2013, technology innovation is a catalyst for change, even reform, and it creates new put more efforts because media may modify the learning experience in ways that are unanticipated and not usually available in face-to-face educational situations. Online learning offers for greater flexibility in terms of time and place for learning and teaching. This is according to Zhang and Cheng 2020. So, Oram Road 2011 identified four basic learning needs. There are competence, relatedness, arousal, and self-determination. So, with uh, four basic learning needs, which cover the most basic educational theories such as behaviorism, cognitivism, and constructivism. So, the basic learning needs of competence refers to a person need to view themselves as competent and capable of performing efficiently in order for his or her result to be accepted and valuable. So, this idea is similar to Bandura's 1997 self-efficacy hypothesis, which states that if a person believes in his abilities and competence to perform a goal at a certain level, he will be motivated to do it and will act properly. So, next is relatedness. The concept of relatedness relates to a person's desire and need to connect with others and create connection with them. So, in the context of educational, arousal refers to the state of learners interested in a topic, and positive arousal allows for continued effort and participation in learning. And then a positive physical environment, affective factors, motivation, attention, and cognitive evaluation can all contribute to positive arousal. Yeah, so according to Desi and Ryan 2000 described self-determination as the organism need to self-organize experience and behavior and to have action be consistent with one's integrated sense of self. So it's mean self-determination, it refers to student's ability to rule and own his learning in an educational context. As a result, autonomy has been used for this study since it is appropriate for the present educational setting and research. And then there were studies conducted in the last decade to analyze the effect of online learning. So from this article, I can sort out the advantage and disadvantage of online learning according to expert. Yeah. So all right. The first, according to Wilson et al., studies have found that online learning can assist learners in achieving their learning goals by providing efficient and convenient ways to learn at their own pace. And then Gilbert 2015 state that online learning enhancing academic attainment and then developing higher order thinking through self graduate learning according to Autumn Road 2011, Parcella Pascarella and Terenzini 2005, and then students were also expected to become more personality according to Fotiadu et al. 2017 and Suzuki 2013. And then, so the next is learners may be effectively aroused to engage in online learning with a supportive environment and the benefit of self-paced and self-direct learning mode. So, however, the lack of immediate response, according to Aguirre Bere et al. 2018, and teacher supervision, and then may be a disadvantage of online learning, resulting in it failing to meet the original learning needs. And then the result on whether online learning can promote relatedness were also varied. Learners' feelings of isolation and a lack of solidarity with peers are also disadvantages of online learning, according to Kotsu Pidu 2014. And then other research, on the other hand, found that online learning might promote collaboration and exchange outside of the formal educational setting since virtual classroom, online conversation, and social networking enable serendipitous interaction. It is according to Weller et al. 2008. So there is 5 points for the advantage and 3 points for disadvantages of online learning. Yeah, so now we'll move on to the third topic that is about the method of this article. Yeah, so the first is about school students' learning management system. During the class interruption time, all of the students in the study had access to online learning, both synchronized and asynchronous. So, Google Classroom was utilized to allow teachers to upload learning materials and students to submit homework and students to communicate with another one. And then for synchronized face-to-face interaction, Zoom was usually applied. Academic topics that use online learning varied, but the most popular courses were Chinese, English, and mathematics, which students had lessons every day, and integrated science, which students had once a week. So each synchronized session had a different purpose based on the teaching and learning process. For example, before teacher completed synchronized online speaking activities with the class in the subject of English, students would be made to read some pre-session readings. And then some science teachers may begin by doing a synchronized science experiments and discussing the theories that explain the experiment, and then the student answer questions and research the material further in a synchronized learning session after the synchronized session. Also, synchronized sessions were held during school hours, and students were free to schedule their own time to complete the activities assigned during the school's day and submit their homework the next day. And then it means that all assessment and participants records were to be recorded and reported. All right, next to the design of the research. So the study goals was to see if student basic learning needs of arousal, relatedness, competence, and autonomy were provided in an online learning environment. Mixed methodologies were used to measure and evaluate the issues in order to address these core questions. Also, to learn more about the facts, personal feelings, and experience behind the participants' questionnaire responses, in depth interviews were held. The current study created a new questionnaire to evaluate how well student basic learning needs are met when they learn online. And then the questionnaire was created using Wong's 2019 Basic Psychological Needs Satisfaction Scale at School in Blended Learning Domain, which used Daisy and Ryan's Basic Psychological Needs Scales as a theoretical base. Yeah. So to learn more about the facts, personal feelings, and experience behind the participants' questionnaire responses, in-depth interviews were held. Yeah. Next to the sampling, there were a total of 118 Hong Kong students in the class, which is 53 of boys and 65 of girls. Through the researcher personal connections, 5 students were invited to participate in these experiments, and then in order to get a large range of school forms of online learning, participant social backgrounds, and demographic features for the study, each participant freely recommended another 5 friends who were not enrolled at his or her own school. And then a total of 125 students were invited after 3 rounds of invitation. By submitting their email address and personal contact information at the end of the online questionnaires, all participants were invited to join in an individual online interviews. And then also a total of 36 people indicated an interest, which is 20 females and 16 males. So the students were required to participate in both synchronized and asynchronous online learning by their schools during the class suspension period. For online learning, Google Classroom, Zoom, and Hangouts were used. At that time of data collection for this project, all participants had completed at least 2 months of online learning. Also, the participants' school subjects needed online learning, parental support, and physical environment varied. And then next to the procedure of the research. So a pilot study for the questionnaire was conducted before the main study. Yeah, so the following the pilot study, the researcher invited 5 students to participate in an online survey, and then a total of 125 students were invited to participate in the study through three rounds of invitation, and then it was mentioned at the start of the online questionnaire that the response would only be used for the study's purpose and that just gender and age would be collected. And then there was no time constraint for participants to complete the questionnaire. And then face-to-face online interviews were also employed as a variation to acquire study data from a different perspective and cover data gaps. So, face-to-face interviews were held using Zoom, and the qualitative data from these 36 student interviews was analyzed qualitatively and thematically, i.e., for each basic learning need. Yeah, all right, that's all I have to say about the method. Now, let's move on to the data collection and data analysis. Let's start by questionnaire, basic learning needs satisfaction scales on online learning domain. All right, so the study created the basic learning satisfaction scales to collect enough solid data that would explain student basic learning needs in the domain of learning. So the scale, which has based on a 7-point rating scale and had 28 closed items. Because there are three basic psychological needs, which is autonomy, relatedness, and competence, coincide with Oram Road 20, 2011's basic learning needs. The current study questionnaire added to the additional component of arousal to the validated basic psychological needs questionnaire for blended learning domain, according to Wong 2018. So there were a total 28 question lists and then 7. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. So 7 of the items were related to arousal, 7 were developed under autonomy, 6 were developed under competence, and 8 were developed under relatedness. Yeah, so data analysis included 2 strategies to address the research questions. The first was a principal components analysis of the 28 questions in the questionnaire, which intended to screen out any factors with loadings of less than zero point 0.4 within their own factors in order to reduce data. So this statement, according to Abdul Fahab 2016, and then the second is exploratory factor analysis, or EFA, was used to identify which components or subcomponents were important to the student basic learning needs according to its capacity to to trigger the groups of the 4 basic learning needs responses as well as identifying interrelationship within each component. So, next to the online individual interviews, because the government recommended about big group meetings and social physical contact during the pandemic, the government decided to conduct individual interviews online. All interviews were recorded with the participants' agreement and used a clear methodology to allow them to share their thoughts on online learning. And then thematic approach analysis was used to find underlying terms and terms that data came from individual students, including across individuals. This is a statement according to Daly et al. 1997. And then face-to-face interviews, which were used to add variety to data collection, resulted in better validity. It also served the goal of answering the study questions from a different perspective in the expectation that the data collected would not have any gaps because the questionnaire might not have provided all of the information needed. Yeah. Turning to the fifth point, which is about research result related to this article. So, yeah, there are a lot of points we will discuss. Based on the present study, qualitative and quantitative result, it was found that students' basic learning needs were only fully covered by online learning. And then student learning needs for autonomy and competency were addressed through online learning. And then when learning was done online, the need for relatedness and arousal was not achieved. Because there was no social and physical connection with teacher and peers in a real classroom setting. Also, student relate student rate autonomy and competence next in the questionnaire descriptive statistical data, implying that online learning may meet student basic learning needs. And then basic learning needs such as relatedness and arousal were discovered to be addressed by online learning. So, I'm sorry. So the result includes autonomy, competence, relatedness, arousal, and relationship among components of basic learning needs. Yeah, let's begin with autonomy. So, according to Sun et al. 2008, the advantage of online learning are increased student autonomy, self-paced, self-directed, and needs-oriented learning. The results show that autonomy was a big aspect of the first factor. This reflected the descriptive statistic result, which is the result of the interviews, also show that why student basic learning needs were mostly covered by autonomy. And then according to Allen and Seaman 2008 and Peterson and McFadden 2009, when compared to traditional face-to-face classroom, online teaching can meet student needs for flexible access. All 86 interviews state that they appreciated the freedom to learn and that there were no limitation on when and how they may complete the learning activities assigned by their teachers. And then according to the interview data, most student learning autonomy was increased as a result of proactive learning and learning how to learn. And then online learning, according to Suzuki 2013, may build learner agency and autonomy while also providing students with a feeling of authenticity by providing them with a channel to express their voices, promote their self-image, and justify their goals. Also according to Blake 2013. That's all about autonomy. So next is about competence. Competence was another basic learning need that might be met in the context of online learning in addition to autonomy. So, according to the result of the survey, 75% of respondents believe that online learning can help them learn more deeply and boldly, improving their self confidence and sense of competence in the classroom. Because they, because they stimulate reflection, which leads to higher order thinking, collaborations, and interaction with online discussion boards and using asynchronous technological tools can contribute to higher course performance. And in comparisons to face-to-face classroom learning, online learning provides students with more time and chance for learning as well as access to learning materials according to a research conducted by the United States Department of Education 2009. Yeah. So next to the relatedness, previous research indicates that in a online learning or online context, there may be a need for social interaction because the learning system are not as authentic as a traditional education experience. And then according to the statistical result of the research, online learning is unrelated to meeting the basic learning needs of relatedness, which is consistent with the result of Kotsopidu 2014, who discovered that online learning has the disadvantages of solitary solitary learning mode. And then based on the interview result, it was related to the changing nature and roles of student peer interactions. Instead of face-to-face contact, students generally made friendship through information technology, and then because of the widespread using of online platform and the various kinds of human interaction, the nature of human relatedness has changed. Online platform such as social networking applications, sites, and virtual worlds have created opportunities for students to have unexpected interaction by allowing them to see or chat with each other outside of class at any time and from anywhere. Yeah, next to arousal. Arousal was another basic learning need that was not being met. To be effective in online learning, students may require additional motivation and self-discipline. state from Jacob and Radai 2016. And then both quantitative and qualitative evidence found that online learning failed to motivate students or keep their attention. Another reason was a lack of student monitoring. Students saw learning as a personal responsibility. Although all students had necessary electronic device and technical support was enough at home to conduct important learning tasks, student basic learning needs of Arousal was not met, according to both quantitative and qualitative results. And then it was because to their lack of motivation, low concentration focus, and interpreting learning as dati, according to students. And then students also state that they were not aroused and at home due to the stress-free classroom situations. Ineffective online learning was also based on the lack of stress and anxiety. The fundamental issues of online learning for students, according to Doughty and Long 2003, is that a teacher is not present to provide feedback or provide knowledge and information input while students are completing online assignment. Yeah. So, next to the relation among components of basic learning needs, autonomy, competence, relatedness, and arousal. So, the result of this study showed that online learning met the basic learning needs of autonomy and competence, but not those of relatedness and arousal. There was a direct association between autonomy and competence, but not relatedness, and no relationship between arousal and other learning needs. Positive and supportive, positive and supportive negative arousal, such as stress and control, was discovered to be a catalyst for effective online learning. The implication of the outcomes of this study for learning and teaching in the upcoming unpredictable education setting warrant further discussion. So much for the component of basic learning needs. Now let me turn to the sixth topic, which is about discussion and implication related to effective online learning model, peer relationship in modern education setting, and limitation of the study. So let's start from effective online learning model. Students explore their individual cognitive learning technique and style to achieve and complete the online activities without the constraints and stress of classroom learning, such as social pressure, teacher supervision, time limits, and so on. The feelings of failure was minimized and a sense of success was achieved as a result. Self-efficacy could be improved as well. So according to the current study, however, students' sense of competence did not directly add to arousal. Most students state that they had available technology support for online learning and that they believe they could complete the assignment, but that they lacked the necessary motivation, stress, and supervision to begin and maintain daily online session. Alright, so according to the study, the reason that motivated students to learn online can be classified into two parts. First is positive factors such as technical support and self-efficacy, which is by definition raise the risk of students in online learning. And the negative factors such as worry, tension, and level of monitoring, which in fact should be offered at an optimal level during the arousal stage. So that is the right amount of anxiety, tension, and supervision can lead to a positive arousal response. According to James 2006, 2018, stress arousal does not reflect a negative emotional state. Too little or too much would have the opposite impact of motivating students to engage in online learning. Yeah. So the basic learning needs of autonomy and competence could be met through online learning. However, there was a missing link going to arousal. The lack of appropriate levels of stress and anxiety resulting from teacher or parental supervision could be the motivating factor for the beginning of online learning. Also, student autonomy and competency learning needs could would be achieved if they were assigned tasks. Students will be motivated to begin online studying as a result of their arousal. And then according to the result of this study, students discovered that online learning helped them achieve their basic learning needs of autonomy and competence. Yeah. Next to peer relationship in in peer relationship in modern education settings. So in the process of online learning, relatedness was found to be significant. So in the context of learning, student interest and wants to be connected with others were unimportant. Students did not believe that their ability to connect with others had improved. In the context of online learning, their interests and wants to be connected with others were unimportant. The frequency and incidence of physical activities among humans have been decreasing as information technology has improved. Students state that they would rather stay at home than participate in a social activities. And furthermore, the model of human communication and connection has changed. There is less physical face-to-face interaction, like conversation mode has moved from synchronized and spoken to asynchronous and written even semiotic indicators such as emoji. Also, according to this research, online learning resulted in a lopsided development of autonomy and competence. Based on the findings, it appears that the generic communication and collaborative skills may be readily overlooked. So, the next is about limitation of this study. The current study disadvantage is that the research context was unique and unconventional and so may not be applicable to regular online learning. So the unique setting was a mid-semester for opinion for both students and teachers. Teachers had title training to deal with students and teacher own issues and anxieties when teaching and learning could only be facilitated online, and both teacher and student were ill prepared to handle this new learning and teaching condition with unexpected challenges. And then aside from that, another update disadvantage was the study small sample size and use a snowball sampling. Alright, so much about student basic learning needs. Now we at the end of my presentation, so I'd like to conclude by some points. Yeah, the first is the goal of this study was to see if student basic learning needs could be met when teaching and learning could only be done online. And then the four basic learning needs, according to Aramdo 2012, are arousal, autonomy, relatedness, and competence, which were used as the theoretical basis for the study. Next, to see if basic learning needs were achieved, researchers used a combination strategies. A total of 118 high school students were required to participate in a validated survey with 36 of them participating in an individual in-depth interview. And then to stimulate online learning, it was necessary to have enough technical assistance as well as a suitable levels for stress, anxiety, and monitoring. And then to stimulate online learning, it was necessary to have enough technical assistance as well as a suitable levels of stress, anxiety, and monitoring. Next is stress and anxiety, whether too little or too much, will squelch learning. So, because of the continuing development of information technology and its increasing importance of human lives, the traditional roles and nature of peers and friendship were found to be unused. Yeah, and then to meet the trend of social and technical development, it is critical to study and build an effective learning model. Yeah, so that's all what I have to say. I hope that you guys can get the point about this topic and then can increase your knowledge about classroom management. So if you has any question, please contact me at my email or via WhatsApp. And for the last, I'd like to say thank you for your attention. Thank you.